But man, it's just Minnesota again is in the limelight, and not for a good reason at all. Not for a good reason. And there's two things that happen, and I think obviously today with the shooting, but I think yesterday or the day before that when they pulled over a fucking lieutenant and pepper sprayed him.
Wait, time out. That was in Minnesota too?
No. That was in Virginia.
Oh, I was gonna say. I was about to say.
I think it was in Virginia. I think it was in Virginia.
You're right. It was in Virginia.
Yeah, it was in Virginia. So yeah. It seems like we can never get over this police thing. And I'm one to always, not always. I'm one to kind of see from both sides. I do protect cops in certain instances, but there's a lot of fuckery. And I think it's just a natural human thing where you date back to centuries and centuries. When you give human beings a certain kind of power,
they abuse it.
And it's like, yes, there's a lot of good apples, and yes, there's bad apples. But I think where it happens is like there's so many laws where cops can do this, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and then the bystander can't do this, and then the list is just as long. It just creates more conflict and they've gained so much power in a way where it's like it's hard for the citizens to kind of take it back, where like sometimes like I always obey when I get pulled over, right? I just know how to talk to cops, so I'm not fucking worried. But there's a lot of people who are hot-headed, and so in instance any little wrong movement
is going to trigger the cops. And I don't have the answer, nor do I want to come up with the answer. But a lot of these incidents, like it takes two for it to happen. Like something happened, but then some of these incidents where it's like it never had to get to that point.
It should have never at all. It shouldn't never get to that point.
You're right on the point. You were like everything you saying right now, like if I was saying what you said, people might call me a coon, but everything you're saying is right. Like, yeah, I get like at some point, like if you're getting pulled over by the cops, sometimes you should just, and I hate saying this because like I said earlier, like these white people go out, they commit mass shootings and they get carried away in handcuffs, but black people get pulled over for a broken tail light, or in the sense of Dante White, rest in peace. He had an air fresh. I have air fresheners in my fucking rear view. Right. He got pulled over for that, and I get he had a warrant. He probably should have just been like, you know what?
Yeah, whatever. If he knew he had a warrant, then fuck. When you have a blemish on your record,
when you have a blemish on your record, you already know that you're a walking target when it comes to the police. So yes, I get he should have just been like, fuck, they got me. My girl's in the car. I'ma just, take this L. They could pick me up from the police department. Yes, I get that, but at the same time, he didn't have no weapon in his hand. They don't know if he actually had a weapon on him. And when he tried to resist arrest, he got in the car. He didn't attack any officers. He didn't do anything wrong. In this sense, this officer, I don't want to say that they're racist yet until we get more information, but they fucked up. As an officer, you should know better.
It almost seems like it was like a training day.
What do you mean?
Where if you watch the cam footage, the guy.
I get you. Yeah, it seemed like the officer that did it, she was newer, like she did.
Right. It almost seems like he's like, okay, I'm doing this, and this how come here. This is what you're supposed to do, and then that slip moment where he kind of took the handcuff off, so that he can kind of hand it over to her, so she can. It almost seems like a training, and then he just jumped into the car, and she I guess she reached for the wrong
thing. But my thing is, if that was and I hate bringing this up. I hate bringing the race card in because not everything is you. I mean, a lot of these police are probably racist, but not everything is about race. But if that was a white man, do you think that they would have shot him with a gun? Do you think they would have tried their best to pull him out, or would have just said fuck you and let him drive away and then chased him? I think that would have happened personally.
I guess.
Because I mean,
I don't know.
Like,
I'm not gonna say.
Okay,
Yeah.
exactly. Okay, not to be like that, but you're not black. Like, I've been pulled
Yeah.
over at times, and I have, like, recently I got pulled over, and the cop couldn't give me no excuse. Like, first he said, "Oh, you were speeding." I just made a left turn, so his first excuse was you were speeding. And I was like, I wasn't really. I mean, I get I was going fast, but I wasn't really speeding like that. Then he tried to say, "Oh, well, your limo tint is illegal because it's too dark." And I'm like, well, then in my head, I'm like, why did you just say that in the first place? Then he tried to check and make sure the car belonged to me. I'm like, nigga, the car is registered under my name. So you can check all this shit. It's registered under me. Everything's up to date.
Right.
So, like, when it comes to certain races, not just blacks, they do this with Hispanics too.
Right.
Cops sometimes try to just find a reason.
Yeah.
Because that's not what they're taught. But subconsciously, that's what they're taught.
Right.
If you see a black dude, if you see a Hispanic dude, they might be a criminal. I had nothing in the car. I just came back from the weed shop. So, yeah, I had weed in the car, but my weed was put in the bag. When you leave the weed shop, they put the shit in the bag. They tell you don't open the bag until you get to your destination. The shit was in the bag wasn't open. And he's still talking about you can't have weed in the car. And we're in California where weed is legal. And I'm like, but I didn't smoke it. He's like, yeah, but I have my tray that I roll on because I smoke in my car at home.
Right.
So I had my tray that I roll on, and my little like bowl or my little pipe was in there. And he was like, yeah, but you have paraphernalia. I'm like, but you can't find no other weed. The only weed you could find is the shit that's in my bag that hasn't been opened. So I'm like, you can't, like, you're trying to say all this shit, but I haven't done nothing wrong. I followed the law. Yeah, it might not be in my trunk. It might not be in the glove compartment, but I did not open the bag. So you can't say that I was in my car smoking because you have no proof. There's no roaches in my ashtray. There's nothing like that.
Right.
Like, so cops sometimes when they see minorities, they try to find anything just to try to pull us over. And that's something that has to be has to be changed when it comes to police training. That's something that we have to reform.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I just think there's also, I'm not gonna, there's a lot of wrong incidents, but also I've always,
by that?
Huh?
What do you mean by that? You gotta elaborate on that.
I know, I'm gonna elaborate.
Okay.
I'm just saying, like, cause we live in California. It's like I've never experienced police in like maybe the East Coast or like the South or something like that.
Yeah, they're not as racist, but I mean they still are, yeah. Racist, but I get what you're saying.
But yeah, I don't know, like it's kind of hard just because like it's a lot of them are bad, right? But then there's also a lot of civilians that are bad. So it's like on one end you got the civilians like, fuck, if I just get pulled over, this might be it. Like the cop's gonna, and then on the other end, the cop's like, oh, if I pull this guy, any little movement, I might be it. I'm just trying to go home. So it's like this side is like.
But here's the thing. Let me play devil's advocate because you're right. You're right. But in America, we have something called capital punishment. When you kill a police officer, and most people know this, most people aren't stupid. Like you would literally have to be fucking sick in the head and not give a fuck about life to shoot a police officer because 99% of the population, no matter how stupid you are in America, you know that if you shoot a police officer and he dies, if you get caught, there's no way in hell you're getting out of prison. They're either going to kill you and give you the death penalty or you're going to be sitting in a fucking cell for the rest of your life.
Right.
And people know that. Gang members know that. People with warrants know that. People who actually commit crimes, the people that we're talking about know that. They don't go after police officers. Right. So what is the... So if you know that, and police officers know this too. Yeah. Like it was the same, like I'll talk about it another time, but police officers know this too. Like they know that these people aren't going to really, like these people might have the weapons, but like people, if they get in a truck stop, they're not just going to say, fuck it, I'm going to try to shoot at the police officer to get out of this. Like,
oh, speaking of this, I got to tell you cool stories because a couple days ago, I watched like a documentary and it's this guy, he's doing a doc on just policing the police, right?
Yeah.
I fucking said that right. I said that right.
Yeah,
right?
Policing the police. You said that right.
So he went to Newark, New Jersey, right? That was the place that he was gonna do his story on, right?
It's a bad neighborhood.
Very bad neighborhood. And so throughout the years, they kind of progressed, but also there was a high percentage of reports on the police being too brutal and too aggressive, right? So he then, as a journalist, went on the back of the cop cars with the cops to do a parole, like a patrol. And so he started noticing like these cops were just stopping and just pulling people over, just anybody with just walking. They pulled over this guy and just like strangle him, and he was just walking home. And then he asked the police, he's like, hey, like, and these aren't like really police, they're like the two gentlemen were Hispanic and black, right? The cops, yeah.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. Even black and Hispanic cops are taught the same thing that white cops are taught,
right?
To basically, so if you see a minority, they might be a criminal, so you should just pull them over anyways.
Right. So and he keep asking him this question, is like, do you have to be so physically violent when you do pull them over? And like, what is the sign that leads you to stopping these pedestrians? And also, by the end of the night, he's like, okay, the statistics show that out of like, I can't even remember exactly, but let's say they pulled over 10 people that night, right?
Yeah.
The statistic in Newark, well, 3 of them had illegal substance or something like that. And so the cops' point was like, look, we do this and we do aggressively just because we want to protect the neighborhoods, but also there's just such a high rate that we have to do this. But then I can see on the other end, it's like, well, the other 7 incidents, they didn't have anything on them.
They were just trying to make it home.
They were just trying to walk home. So like, there's no need for that violence. So they ended up shutting down and firing those cops. And now over the years, what they came up with, and I think this is fucking a great idea, and I think more neighborhoods should do this. But it's like, I forgot the name. Let's just call it Neighborhood Watch, right? It's this guy who's African American. He used to be in jail. He just came out. I think they're like the streets, something like that. But it's like a group of like 9 minorities, right? And they're just patrolling the street. They're handing out pamphlets. They're like, hey, they're giving them their cards. Like, hey, if anything happens, you call us. You don't call the cops. We work with the cops, but you call us first, right? So their job is basically align with the cops. And so they're like they're always going to be in the low income communities, and they're basically the first line of connect before it gets to the cops, right?
Yeah.
And since that group started, like crime in Newark, New Jersey has decreased, just because the one thing is like minorities feels more comfortable when other minorities are checking on them.
That's usually how it goes.
And these guys they had a police in the back, but it was like it was like their name.
In street clothes. Like,
yeah, there was like kind of street clothes, and they're handing out pamphlets, and they're like talking to them. It's like, how your day going? Like, are you good? Like, do you need any help? They're approaching them with a very like a warm welcome, like, hey, like, I'm your neighbor type, not like, hey, stop, put a hands up thing.
And that all comes back to when it comes to police stations, it needs to start being cops. And this was the thing. Most cops, they don't work for the police in the neighborhood that they live in because of a quote unquote conflict of interest. But you put these people that fucking live in I would use California for example. You put police officers that probably live in Palos Verdes or live in Malibu or live in some of these nice areas because they're white and they probably have the money. And then they're over here patrolling in South LA, in Gardena and Compton. And they don't understand what really goes on in their neighborhood. Whereas if you put people who, instead of sending the people who grew up in Compton that are trying to be police officers to the Valley and put them in Compton with the Compton sheriffs, they'll understand and they'll be more. I mean, yeah, sometimes people fuck up and you gotta, as a police, you gotta, put them in their place or do whatever you want. I don't know how to word it, but you get what I'm saying. But if you grew up in that neighborhood that you're policing, you're more understanding and you'll be able to de-escalate situations more than someone who didn't grow up in that neighborhood and don't give a fuck about anybody in that community, really. But
all right, let me play devil's advocate here, because we're kind of like we're blaming the bad cops, not all cops, and then we're also
not all cops are bad, and it sucks when you say that in a situation because it sounds like, all right, now you're defending cops, but
like we're not defending cops.
Not all cops are bad, but not all cops are good, and that's the same thing. Not all citizens are bad, but not all citizens are good.
And it's
Same
like,
thing. It goes both ways.
so I'm gonna play devil's advocate. So anytime when some shit like this happens, right, and we see the footage, right, there's gonna be one side that says, okay, like fuck the cops, like blah 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 blah, and then there's the other side is gonna be like, well, you know, like why didn't he just comply? And I think like the thing that we do have to kind of like talk about is there's I know in the spur of the moment a lot of people can't hold their anger or can't, you know, constrain their, because I've experienced this, right? I've been in incidents where it was me, my friend, I'm not gonna know who name it is, but we're talking to the cops, right? And he's in instances like that, very aggressive, very not play by the book. I know how to talk to cops. I'm very comfortable because I know whatever comes out of my mouth and every little movement, it's for their safety first before mine. Because if I can put them in a safe, comfort place, then I know I can walk away in a safely manner.
No, you're right.
Right? So I'm not fucking dumb. I'm not gonna do anything to put myself in danger. But my friend, on the other hand, very angry. You know, we get searched and stuff like that, and I would have to be like, yo, stop talking, because the more you talk, the more trouble we'll be in. And then so the cops just instantly will stop talking to him, and now it's having a conversation with me because I can have,
because they know that you're the calmer one. You're not gonna be irrational. I think I might know what you're talking about, but you're not gonna be irrational.
Yeah.
I know what you're talking about, actually,
Okay.
You get what I'm saying? You're not gonna be irrational, so they know that they can have a conversation with you, whereas your friend, he's over here already angry because the cops pulled him over. So anything they say to him, he's gonna be like, "Fuck you, fuck this, fuck that."
And to me, it's like I think in order to kind of like, I know there's some with racist intentions, but and then there's some where it's like, you know what, all of this could be avoided if both parties
would actually cooperate
and just want to go home safely, because they're especially with this incident, so many things could have been avoided. One, hey, pull the taser, and then other two, you didn't have to run, because where were you going?
And I don't want to say that. Like, I get what you're saying, and I hate saying that, because no matter if he ran, he shouldn't have lost his life, because he never put the cops' lives in danger. But you're right, like, because sometimes if you just, and I hate saying that because it sounds like you're a coon, but if you just comply with the cops and do what they say, you can go home. He would have went home to his child.
Right. He has a kid. Like, at that time, you got to think about.
Go to jail. Let your family bond you out. You would have went home. But it's not on him. It's on the cop, because cops are supposed to be trained, no matter if you're being irrational or not.
Right.
They're supposed to be trained to fucking de-escalate these situations, not make them worse. So it's always going to be on the cop. But I get what you're saying. Like, come on, like,
it could have been avoided.
I say that to my friends
ends.
all the time. Like, I'd be like, man, if y'all ever get pulled over, like,
right,
man, just do whatever the cops say. I don't give a fuck if he arrests you. If I got the money, I'll come bail you out and come get you myself. I'd rather be broke and have to spend my last money to bail a friend out of jail, than get that call or see on social media that my friend got killed by a cop because he was resisting arrest. And as fucked up as that sounds, because I don't want to put this on Deontay White, rest in peace. I mean, Dante Wright, rest in peace to him.
I don't think we should like treat getting pulled over as like a burden either, because like I know all this shit is bad. Police needs to be better, and they need to get fucking better ASAP, right? The bad ones at least. But also on the other end, it's like fuck, what was I gonna say? I fucking lost my train of thought. But I get what you're saying. But on the other end, it's like we need to calm down and not get defensive so fast. Because the quicker you get defensive,
the quicker the cops are gonna start panicking.
Right.
And you don't want the cops to panic. It makes the person who's getting murdered sound like, I don't want to make it sound like they're the bad person. But you're right. Like, we have to be more calmer. Because there's only, like, we can do all this complaining. We could talk about police reforming, and hopefully this should have happened soon. Right. But it's only so much we can do until these laws and all this shit really starts changing and going into effect. So you have to be calmer, because I'm sick of seeing hashtags of a black dude because I'm black. So I got followed on the way here by a fucking sheriff. When I was in Carson, I took the streets because I was trying to waste time. But
right.
I got followed on the way here, so I already know like. As you have to be smart sometimes. You can't let whatever they do.
You can't let your hatred for the police to take over you and then act
irrationally when you're in these situations. You have to be more rational because you know as not even just black people. This happen. I see a lot of Mexicans that get killed by the cops. You as a minority, you have to know that when you get pulled over, I don't give a fuck if it's for running a red light and you got no weapons, no drugs. There's a good chance if you act the wrong way, you might not make it home. So you have to be smart because these cops are idiots sometimes.
But speaking about pulling over, my one thing is that traffic stops
should never turn into these situations.
Traffic stop need to be a little bit more chiller. Little bit more chiller.
On the cop side. On both sides, but on the cop side.
Yeah.
People are going to be mad I get mad when I get pulled over for speeding, even if I am speeding.
Right. Yeah. I'm like, motherfucker, what
exactly.
me?
So
why me? I'm always like, that motherfucker was going 100. But also, I got to keep a calm, cool collective because I can't act fucking mad because you pull me over either. It's just not, at the end of the day, it's not putting...
We're not putting anybody in a better
good
situation,
position.
But cops should know better. But it goes, I get you. It does go both ways.